Am I the antagonist for holding a 10-year grudge after I, F44, was insulted at a job interview? 10 years ago, I, a 44-year-old woman, was approached by a company to interview with their chief executive officer, CEO, for a position I did not apply for. I agreed to the interview, which was arranged by the CEO's assistant. The interview was scheduled for a Monday morning breakfast meeting at a hotel restaurant. On the day of the interview, I arrived early, 30 minutes before the designated time, to ensure I would not be late. The meeting was set for 8 a.m., but the CEO did not show up. At 8:15, there was still no sign of him. I contacted their assistant, who promptly responded, stating they would confirm the correct restaurant. After a short while, they informed me that the CEO was on his way. It was nearly 9 a.m. when he finally arrived, making a feeble excuse about traffic and then ordering his breakfast and a newspaper. I suspected he overslept or forgot about the meeting, and I found it rather surprising that he had time to read the newspaper. During the interview, he asked me basic questions while eating. Although I felt the interview was not being taken seriously, I answered the questions to the best of my ability. The interview ended around 9:20, with the CEO mentioning that he had other candidates to meet with and someone would contact me. We went our separate ways, but I did not have a good feeling about it. Nevertheless, I sent a thank you email for the opportunity, to which he replied with a brief thanks. Best wishes. However, I never heard anything further, leaving me feeling dismissed and insulted. Fast forward to last year, when one of my close female friends, a 42-year-old woman, mentioned that she had met a nice older man, around 56 years old, through mutual friends. They had been on a few enjoyable dates, but it was not a serious relationship. Curious about him, I asked for more details, and she revealed that he was the former CEO of ABC Company. I remembered telling her about the awkward interview, and it turned out that he was still working in the same industry, albeit in a senior position that was not at the executive level. I did not have a favorable opinion of this person, and my girlfriend was aware of it. She tried to smooth things over by informing him about the interview incident, but he claimed he had no recollection of it. My girlfriend, however, assured him that it did happen. When she relayed this conversation to me, it only worsened my feelings. In a light-hearted manner, she joked, "I guess I won't be bringing him to your house anytime soon." That was a year ago, and they are still together. Due to my parental responsibilities, I rarely go out, which means I haven't seen her much. Whenever we do meet, he is not present. I know that at some point, I will have to meet him again, and I will maintain politeness. However, I will likely still harbor negative feelings towards him. Am I wrong for holding this grudge? Or is it understandable for me to feel insulted by his denial of the awkward interview? Based on the information provided, you are not the asshole for hanging on to this grudge. The CEO's behavior during the interview was unprofessional and disrespectful, and it is understandable that it left you feeling insulted. It is also understandable that you may still have negative feelings towards him, especially since he denied the interview even took place. While it is important to be polite when you meet him again, you are not obligated to forgive or forget the disrespectful treatment you received. Your feelings are valid, and it is up to you how you choose to handle interactions with him moving forward. Am I the antagonist for making my friend lose her job and be suspended? I, 24-year-old female, was best friends with Mel, 24-year-old female. Players in the story: my boyfriend Aaron, 29-year-old male, Mel's boyfriend Burp, 32-year-old male, and my other friend roommate Aline, 24-year-old female. Backstory: my boyfriend Aaron and I have been together for 6 months at this point. She was dating Burp and moved in with him. One day at a friend's party 2 months later, Mel, Burp, Aaron, Aline, and I attended. We were having fun. Aline felt sick, so I took her out and sat her on a chair. I went to get her water, and when I returned, Burp stopped me, checking on me and Aline. Mel came and dragged Burp away, and they began fighting in another language. No one but them spoke. I checked on them, but Mel accused me of trying to steal her boyfriend. Aline, Aaron, and I quickly left, not wanting to stir any more drama. Mel came by the next day apologizing for screaming at me and accusing me. However, Mel told me Burp kicked her out of their place. Aline and I agreed to let her stay. Mel was still on our couch 2 months later, hunting for a new place. That morning, Aline and I had asked Mel to start paying for her share, as our bills were getting high and unaffordable. Mel stormed out, pissed, calling us the worst friends. Later in the evening, Aaron and Aline's boyfriend came over for some drinks and game night. We welcomed Mel when she returned home to join us and acted like nothing happened. Mel was always dramatic. Mel started paying and life went on. We started to get nasty texts and calls from friends and people we knew, telling us how disgusting Aaron was. Half of his friends aren't talking to him, calling him awful things. Later, Aaron found threatening letters at his door in his car. He has been getting calls from people and texts from people he doesn't know telling him to end it and how horrible he is. Aaron's family found out, and I told them the truth. They have been trying to see them, but he hides. He deactivated his social media accounts and has been on sick leave from work since. We were so lost as to who would do this or what this is about. Then Burp sent me a screenshot of Mel bragging to her how she was breaking me up, how this is revenge on me for ruining her relationship. She has been telling everyone Aaron cheated on me, calling him racial slurs and all other derogatory things about him. Aline and I packed her things and put them outside the door. We changed our lock while Mel was at work. We sent her a text telling her to find somewhere else to go. Mel called Aline, asking how we could throw her out, and Aline told her off. This is where I may be the asshole. I forwarded the text to all our friends and some of her immediate family. It got posted online with her tagged in it. Her work found out, and her school and she both been fired and suspended for the racial comments. I never intended for it to have such a large impact on her. She lost all her friends and her family is low contact with her now. She's been living out of her car since then. Am I the asshole? You and Aline were kind enough to let Mel stay at your place when she was kicked out by Burp. Additionally, you confronted Mel about her not paying her share of the bills, and she stormed out in anger. It's not unreasonable to ask someone to contribute when they are living in your home. The fact that Mel then proceeded to spread malicious rumors about Aaron, including racially derogatory comments, shows her true intentions were to hurt you and your relationship. Discovering the evidence of her intentional attempts to break you up and seeing the impact her actions were having on Aaron's life, you made the decision to remove her from your home and share the truth with your friends and her immediate family. While it is unfortunate that Mel faced severe consequences as a result of her own actions, it is important to note that she brought these consequences upon herself by spreading falsehoods and engaging in racist behavior. Ultimately, she chose to jeopardize her own relationships and employment by engaging in such destructive behavior. It's important to remember that actions have consequences, and in this situation, Mel's actions had severe repercussions. Am I the antagonist for not allowing my niece to bring any of her toys to my house? The people involved are myself, not specified by name, my husband Dan, and my stepdaughter Ava, 6. Ava stays with us approximately 75% of the time. Additionally, my sister Kat and her daughter May, 8, are involved. Recently, Kat was in a serious car accident and she will require a few months to recover. Currently, she is mostly confined to her bed but is expected to fully recover. Her boyfriend is taking care of her. But since their relationship is relatively new, it was decided that May would stay with my parents until Kat is able to move independently. Due to our schedules, I will end up taking care of May on Saturdays and occasionally on Sundays. I believe that Kat is too permissive with May, which has resulted in her being spoiled. Although May is generally a sweet kid, she also has a sense of entitlement and a belief that everything belongs to her. Additionally, she can become pushy and mean if she doesn't get her way. The girls have known each other for a long time, and I have witnessed this behavior repeating itself. Most of the time, they get along well, and Ava has been good about sharing her belongings. However, Ava becomes frustrated when May brings her own toys or electronics and then refuses to share them, leading Ava to withhold sharing as well. This situation has become more frequent since the accident. Kat has always said that May doesn't have to share her things, which is true, but the same applies to Ava. We have all seen the consequences when Ava doesn't share, but Kat dismisses it every time. Ava doesn't want to share in those instances because she is old enough to recognize that May isn't being fair, even if she can't fully understand why. Anticipating this problem, my husband and I have taken steps to prevent it. We have decided that May is not allowed to bring any toys or electronics over at all. When my parents mentioned this to Kat, she became furious. She called me and expressed her belief that we are being unfair and punishing her daughter for not letting others take advantage of her. She accused me of undermining her parenting lessons on being assertive. She also claimed that she didn't buy things for other children to play with, and that I couldn't understand because I'm not a real mom. In response, I became upset and told her that if she wasn't going to teach her child to treat others the way she wanted to be treated, then this was our only option. I emphasized that Ava's feelings matter too, and that this situation could eventually damage their entire relationship. Essentially, we are trying to mitigate this issue until Kat fulfills her responsibilities as a parent. Our argument continued, and I told her that if she had a problem with my rules, she could come over and take action herself, which she can't, or she could stop complaining. Eventually, our conversation devolved into yelling and name-calling, and I ended the call. I am still angry and my husband agrees with me. However, my mother is making me feel guilty, stating that I am causing stress to Kat while she is recovering and essentially calling her a bad mother. Kat herself also used harsher words to describe me than just an AH. Therefore, I am curious to know what an objective opinion about this situation would be. You and your husband took a decision to prevent conflicts between Ava and May by not allowing May to bring her toys or electronics over to your house. This decision was made in consideration of Ava's feelings and to prevent any further strain on their relationship. It is understandable that you are concerned about your stepdaughter Ava feeling frustrated and unable to understand why May doesn't share when Ava herself shares her belongings. It seems like you and your husband are trying to mitigate these issues until Kat can address them with her daughter. Although arguments and name-calling occurred during your conversation with Kat, it is important to remember that emotions were running high. However, it is not fair for Kat to dismiss Ava's feelings and undermine your role as a parent. It is also worth considering if there are alternative ways to address the issue rather than preventing May from bringing her belongings. Communication and understanding between all parties involved will be essential for resolving this conflict. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to spend time with my pregnant wife? My wife, who I'll call C, and I are expecting a baby in December and we will be moving in 2 days. C has always struggled with codependency due to some childhood traumas. I don't blame her for it, but it sometimes makes me feel restricted in what I can do. We both work from home and spend most of our time together. C gets jealous when I spend time with others, which doesn't bother me usually. However, since I never had much independence growing up, I value my freedom now. I want C to have the freedom to do things, and I think it's important for her to get out of the house. Whenever she tells me she has plans, I get excited and encourage her to have fun. On the other hand, if I have plans that don't include her, she gets sad about losing our time together. I only hang out with my friends every few months, and I typically see my best man once every 3 months. C is in a similar situation as her best friend moved out of state. Neither of us has a large friend group, so we mostly rely on each other for social interaction. However, about a year ago, we joined a group of around 30 people who play D&D in a West Marches style with rotating dungeon masters and players. Most of the sessions are online, but some are in person. I have to work every other Saturday in exchange for a weekday off, so every 2 weeks we only have 1 day off together. On the days I work, I don't have the energy to socialize with anyone besides C. I try to keep alternate Sundays free because having days off together is important to C. However, there's currently a quest arc in the D&D campaign that I am really involved in, and they can't play without me if I miss. The Dungeon Master has a busy October, so if we don't schedule the session for next Sunday, it will likely be in November. I mentioned the upcoming session to C and she became sad. When I asked why, she said, "It's going to be our first weekend together at our new house, and I wanted to spend our day off there with you. However, we will have already been at the new house for a week, and we will likely do the same things we always do on our days off." C is not manipulative, but she has a hard time hiding her emotions. I always feel guilty when she expresses sadness, and I often end up canceling or rescheduling my plans to make her happy. This time, I'm torn between messing up the plans of 6 other people or doing what C wants me to do. Additionally, she expressed concern that I won't prioritize our daughter when she arrives. This upset me because being a dad has always been my biggest priority, and I have made that clear. I think she made the comment due to pregnancy hormones, but I feel that I can't have time for myself without feeling guilty. Am I the asshole for wanting to play D&D instead of spending the day with her? It is important for individuals to have their own independence and hobbies, even within the context of a relationship. You have expressed that you support your wife having her own plans and activities, but she seems to struggle with the same support for you. It is not fair for her to always make you feel guilty about wanting to spend time doing something you enjoy, especially when you have already compromised by rescheduling and canceling plans in the past. It is also unfair for her to question your commitment to being a good father based on this situation. However, it is important to have a discussion with your wife and address her concerns and insecurities about your time together. Communicate openly about your needs for personal time and try to find a balance that works for both of you. It may also be helpful for your wife to seek therapy to address her codependency and any underlying traumas that may be contributing to her behavior. Am I the antagonist for rejecting a disabled student's prom proposal? So, this happened to me, 19-year-old female, last spring, but I'm still getting criticized for it, so I need to see if I was actually the asshole in this situation. Last spring, I was a senior in high school. I was in a class called Mentor Study, where I was assigned a couple of disabled students to help with homework, classwork, give life advice, etc. Anyway, there was a boy in this class that I mentored, whom I'll call James. James is intellectually disabled, but beyond that, he's a super sweet and friendly guy that I had become friends with since the spring semester started. Anyway, fast forward to April, people started getting asked out to prom. A few weeks prior, I had already agreed with a friend group of mine to go with this one particular guy. We didn't tell anyone because he wanted to plan an elaborate promposal later. One day, James comes towards me with a bunch of teachers and assistants holding a sign that said, "Will you be my prom date?" holding balloons, and he was also holding a box of donuts. I smiled and went up to him and said I was flattered, but I had already agreed to go with another guy. He was super understanding about it and said we could share the donuts later in class. However, it was super awkward as the teaching assistants and teachers awkwardly smiled at each other and patted James on the back as he headed back down the hallway. Later that day, I started getting a lot of nasty stares in the hallway, and a few friends and acquaintances in school started texting me that I was an asshole and a bitch for telling him no, because he was disabled and that I was ruining his high school experience. I just told them that I already planned to go with someone else and that I wasn't going to pity James by going with him just because he was disabled. That semester, I had basically been cast out as the major bitch of the school, and a campaign started for a bunch of girls to escort him to the prom. Memes and everything were made of me online. I had to deactivate my Instagram due to the amount of hate I received. My issue is, I don't think I treated James any differently than any other guy that would have asked me to prom after I already had plans, and I didn't see it any differently. It would feel weird and gross to agree only because he has a disability, but apparently my school seems to disagree. Despite this, James and I both agreed in class that this awkward encounter wasn't a big deal, and we are still friends to this day, even though now I am in college. I am still getting criticized for this to this day, so I wanted to ask, am I the asshole? Should I have reacted differently or taken him to prom regardless? He did end up going to prom, by the way, with the group of girls who started the petition to escort him. It's clear that you had already made plans to go to prom with someone else before James asked you, and it's perfectly reasonable to stick to those plans. You treated James with respect and kindness, and he even understood your decision. It's unfair for people to label you as an AH just because you didn't want to go with James due to his disability. Prom should be a personal choice, and it's important to go with someone you genuinely want to spend the evening with. Pity or obligation should not be the foundation for a prom date. James ended up going with a group of girls who genuinely wanted to accompany him, which is great. The backlash you received from your school, including the online hate, is way out of proportion and unjustified. It's important to surround yourself with supportive friends who understand your perspective and don't jump to conclusions. Your friendship with James has remained unaffected, which demonstrates that your decision did not harm your relationship with him. Am I the antagonist for saying my dad failed me by moving too fast after my mom died? I was 8 years old when I lost my mom to cancer. She knew she didn't have much time left, and my parents informed me about it. It was a highly distressing period, and while some memories have stayed with me, others have faded. However, one memory that will always stick with me is waking up in the middle of the night and hearing my mom ask my dad to move on after she passed away. She knew that I would need him, and that he should prioritize me. She also expressed her fear that he might forget about her and try to avoid his pain. She didn't want to be forgotten or replaced. I don't even remember my dad's response, but I could tell that my mom was crying. And I found myself crying too. She was right. I had already begun to fall apart knowing that she wouldn't be there anymore. My dad started dating almost immediately after my mom was buried, and 6 months later, he introduced me to the woman who would become his second wife. I received no support during this time. He focused on everything my mom had feared he would do. His second wife constantly made it clear that she intended to marry my dad and become my new mom. The following years were terrible, and I resented my dad for moving on so quickly, too quickly for me, and for trying his best to replace my mom with his second wife and erase her memory. Things only started to improve 2 years ago when my grandparents stepped in to help me after being disregarded for so long. Their intervention made a world of difference for me. I was lost, barely getting through school, and my friendships were almost non-existent due to my depression, for which I was eventually diagnosed. My dad's wife believed that my depression would be the turning point for me, where I would start accepting her and allowing her into my life. However, I still have no interest in having a second mom or pretending that she is anything more than the woman my dad is married to. He doesn't seem to care either, but he does whatever she wants. As a result, we all started therapy together a year ago, but after 4 months the therapist suggested that she leave so it could be just my dad and me. Unfortunately, therapy hasn't really been making any progress. Then last week my dad's wife insisted on joining us, and the therapist encouraged me to speak up and express everything I had shared during our individual sessions. So I did. I told my dad that he let me down by moving on too quickly, betraying my mom's fears and failing to do right by me, his only child, the child my mom gave him. I told him that he had hardly been a father to me since my mom got sick. I informed him that he hadn't noticed or cared about my depression, and that his actions were a disgrace to my mom's memory. The therapist told him that he should care more than he currently does, and informed his wife that her expectations were unrealistic, and that she needed to let them go. Afterward, both of them became angry with me and claimed that I had been cruel and dishonest. Now I am staying at my grandparents' house, but they still text me to tell me that I am wrong. So am I the asshole? You are not the asshole in this situation. Your father did not give you the support and understanding you needed after losing your mother, and instead rushed into a new relationship. It is completely understandable that you felt hurt and betrayed by his actions. Your therapist also acknowledged the validity of your feelings and the need for your father to prioritize your well-being. Your father and his wife are the ones in the wrong for not taking your feelings seriously and dismissing your pain. Your grandparents' intervention and support further validate your perspective. It is important for your father to acknowledge his mistakes and work towards repairing your relationship. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.